Hi, everyone. I'm Crystal McDaniel, and this is The Naked Singer. Today, I am going to tell you my story. Some of you have heard my story before, and you know a lot about me, and you listen to my podcast regularly. Some of you do not, and you have absolutely no idea who I am or what I do. So today, I'm going to give you a little background on that so that you understand where I'm coming from and why this is so important to me and what I'm reaching out into the world to do. When I was a little girl, I was born in a very small town in the Northwest Georgia mountains. And there wasn't a whole lot really going on in that particular county and that particular area of Northwest Georgia. Was born in the hospital there, and I was one of the last babies to be born in the hospital in Summerville, Georgia, because now they no longer have a hospital, and you literally have to drive 30 miles to the closest medical facility to get care. So it's a very poor area of Georgia. And my parents both love to sing, and they are from or were from Chattanooga, Tennessee. They're both passed away now, and they are from Chattanooga, Tennessee. And they actually met in high school on a choir trip where they were going to Knoxville to sing. And so that's how they met. So my whole family has always been musical, and I was always exposed to music. By the time I was 18 months old, I was already singing full songs, and I sang in front of my first audience when I was 18 months old with my family in a church. So I grew up, as many people do, singing in churches. My father was the 1972 National Blind Golf Champion, and because of that, yes, I did say blind golf. He was a professional blind golfer. There is the PGA, and then there is the US BPGA, which is the organization for blind golfers. You can look it up. It's all there. It's all real. And my father just happened to be the national champion blind golfer in 1972. So because of that, he had a modicum of notoriety, and we traveled all over the country. He did golf exhibitions, and our family sang for events. We were sort of a small Von Trapp family. There were four of us: my mom, my dad, my brother, and I. And we sang everywhere and all over the place. We traveled probably out of 52 weeks in the year. We probably traveled at least 35 of those weekends. So we were always on the road, always going somewhere, and always singing. So from the time I was a little girl, I absolutely loved to sing. So I was performing and singing, and I always dreamed of one day being a really great singer. As my life progressed, that's what my goal was. And that's what I continued to grow for. In my high school at the time I attended it, there was no choral program. There was only band. So I took the band class and I became a flautist. And to this day, I am a professional flautist as well. So for those of you that don't know what a flautist is, that means I play the flute professionally. So I learned to play the flute, and I continue to do so to this day. And especially since there were no performing opportunities for singers. So sometimes I would take school projects and I would write musicals around them and perform them. And I did all kinds of creative things, make sure that I got to sing as much as possible. And I started taking my first voice lessons in my junior or senior year of high school. And I had to drive an hour and a half to Jack State University in Alabama in order to be able to take those voice lessons. And I am very appreciative of those very early voice lessons and performance opportunities that I had. But I still wanted to grow more. So when I went to college, I studied voice. I wanted to be a vocal performance major, which I was. So I ended up getting my bachelor's and master's degree from the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. In vocal performance, I studied with Dr. Rebecca St. Gore there and made so many friends. I absolutely loved my college education. And I loved being in college, and I loved the camaraderie I had there, and I love the connections that I made there. And I'm very appreciative to the Chodic School of Music there for taking me in and helping and guiding me. That time in my life, I have to say that I was pretty messed up. My family was very dysfunctional. Even though we sang a lot in churches and we went to church a lot, like many families, we weren't perfect. My father was mentally and emotionally abusive and sometimes physically abusive. And that was all going on behind the scenes. Some people knew, but not a lot. And most people just didn't make a big deal about it. And it really messed me up from time to time. And I wasn't necessarily the most responsible student that anyone has ever had. So I had to really change my mindset and work for years to change my mindset. After college, I got married immediately and worked on my master's degree. And then I performed at various places, and I really wanted to get up on this stage and sing and perform. And then I found myself pregnant because I was married, a young couple, and I started having very, very, very difficult pregnancies. So I was in ICU a good bit, and it was quite difficult. My life was on the line for that, and my health was on the line, and so were the babies. My first child was stillborn. His name was Jackson. And then my son Jacob and my daughters Rachel and Rosemary, who are twins, came after that. And all of those were very difficult pregnancies. So after that was all done, I wanted to come back and start performing again and start working again. And there was just really not any opportunities at that point. And honestly, people sort of looked at me like I was crazy at that point for wanting to continue to perform when I had these 3 small children at home. I guess in that time and area, they thought that I should just stay home or get a job or settle and raise my children and just forget about everything. But I couldn't, because God gave me this gift and I had always wanted to do it. Plus, I have a dream to be very, very successful. So during all of that time, there was a lot of stress on my marriage, and, a lot of things went on, and I ended up separating, and I moved to North Carolina, and we had these 3 small children, and all of these things were going on, and I realized how messed up a person that I was and how messed up my life was, and I needed to start figuring out how to make it better for these 3 small children that I had. And I wanted a better life from them, something better than I had. I did not want them to grow up in the dysfunction. Now, everybody's going to have a dysfunctional home because we are all broken human beings. We all make mistakes, but I wanted something better for my children. So I continued to work at that. I got therapy. I had a job at a church for a time, and then I was still unhappy in that. So my children ended up, because they were all born premature, they all had health issues. So I ended up resigning from my job at the church, and I started my own voice studio, because I knew with that, at least I could work at home and I could stay at home with my children and I could watch over them while I was here. So really, I started the studio in order to help my children, and I started becoming a voice teacher. At that time, I ended up in a workshop with teachers of singing. NATS is what it's called. I know it's a long name for a weird anagram. I've been a member for years and years now, and I've got a lot of super great colleagues in that. And so I ended up at a NATS workshop in Miami, Florida, and I went to this workshop where I just happened to see and meet this man, and his name is Neil Seamer. And Neil has been my voice teacher for the past 23 years, and he helped me to learn that I had way more in myself than I knew that I had. And there was way more to me than I ever thought about having. All I knew growing up was this really small town, and I just had this dream of being in New York City. I didn't want to be stuck in a small town. I wanted something so much bigger than the smallness that I lived in. And I kept being told over and over again that cities like that were so very dangerous. It was just not a good place to go. And I thought, but all these people are there and these things are happening, and I do want to go. So I went. Now, I'm going to back up a little bit, and I'm going to tell you that while I was in college, I said earlier that I had a super experience in college, and I really loved my college experience, and I was in the college choir there, and our choir director, Glenn Draper, amazingly motivated man, selves, and he promoted us to rise to the highest level of performance that we could possibly rise to. And he loved to. So for the first time in my life, I wasn't doing small things. I ended up being able to travel the world and leave the continent. And the very first time I left the continent of the United States, we traveled overnight. We landed in Australia, where I got to perform in Australia and in New Zealand. And I was so amazed because it was like, wow, the world immediately expanded for me. And I will be forever grateful that the world just expanded so much then for me, because it was way more than I ever possibly thought that I could. I remember in that particular trip, we sang at the Crystal Cathedral in LA in Orange County. And that when I found out how many in that church with Robert Schuller and the Crystal Cathedral, I remember saying to the bus driver, because seriously, you have to shuttle from the parking lot to the church. There are that many people. And I said to the shuttle driver in front of Glenn Draper and his wife, Lunell, I said, oh my gosh, that's more people than I have in my whole hometown. And I remember Lunell going, you are so funny. And I thought, why am I being funny? It's the truth. This church has 10,000 people, and we only have 3,500 in our city limits. I can't even imagine that many people being under one building. So, at this time now, I look back on it and I go, oh my goodness, I can't even believe that I said that. But the bottom line is that was just true. And my world was expanding second by second by second by second. And I was just thrilled. And I was so overwhelmed and in awe with what I was seeing. And I will never forget seeing New Zealand for the first time, because I thought it was the most beautiful place I had ever seen in my life. And that travel just gave me the bug to want to travel the world more, to want to meet more people, to want to expand my horizon. So here I came from this little small town that now doesn't have a hospital and struggles to keep ambulance service, and the high school doesn't stay open for the entire week because the area is very underfunded, and so they go 4 days a week and take an extra hour every week. From that background, and then all of a sudden traveling the world and realizing the opportunities that there were out there, it just really blew my mind. It was like this huge explosion. And I got to do that 2 times. I went to Australia twice and I went to England once. And I cannot tell you how amazing it was to see those countries that I had only seen in movies and magazines and on television, and never thought that I would be there. I got to see New York City. I got to sing in Carnegie Hall. I got to sing in the Sydney Opera House. It just overwhelmed my mind and gave me more possibilities on what there was in life. And I'm forever grateful to the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga and the people there for providing that opportunity to me when I graduated and after that, and I had my children and I needed to start establishing myself, and I had moved to North Carolina and I took this job at the church and all of that. And then I came home because my children were sick and I needed a job to be able to support them, because now I was a single mom and I needed to be able to support my children and stay at home with them because they were very sick and we were in and out of doctor's offices and we were in and out of hospitals. It was a very difficult time for me. I had panic anxiety disorder from past trauma and from all I was going through with being a single mom with the children. It was just completely overwhelming. And then I felt rejected as a singer because I tried to return to the professional singer arena and was rejected. And I just felt like my whole life fell apart. I just felt like all my dreams went down the drain. So I started figuring out how to help other young be able to reach their dreams and goals, and while I was working on my own. So I've continued to do that. Now it took years and years and years to build on that. But now, my children have my students have gone to competitions. I have built this studio strong. The students I have, they have been admitted to some of the top colleges in this country, from Belmont University to NYU to Boston University to UNCG to Elon College. I could just go on and on and on with the list of really great schools that they have all attended. And I'm so proud of the work that I've done. So much credit, Neil Seamer, for what I've done in my life, because he taught me these really techniques. Take my voice and my students' voices to a completely different level. Neil is considered one of the best voice teachers on the planet, and he works with some of the best singers in the world. Then I went over to Europe and I studied with him in Germany 2 times, and I worked with Roberta Cunningham in Germany. And then I met my best friend, Eugene Brancoviano. He won the Tony in 2002 for La Boheme. And I'm just so happy that all of these things came into my life. I never dreamed when I was a little girl that my best friend would be someone who speaks 7 languages fluently. And he helps me and he teaches me, and he's a good example, and he's such a great support. And I am so very grateful that I have him as a friend, and we've partnered, and now we do workshops for the students, and we've put on showcases, and we're teaching them all these great performance techniques, and we teach them all of this great vocal technique that we were taught. And it is just absolutely amazing to see what God has done from the time I was a little girl until now. I have done professional shows. I've gotten great reviews. I'm just so blessed when it comes to that. And I find that my work with these students is so important, because I don't just teach them voice and let them go out the door. We find ways to show that singing has everything to do with your life. And if you put your life in a line, then you're going to put your voice in a line. And that is the greatest thing that I can hand to a student, is actual life skills, a way to live out a life of purpose and joy within what you do. And it's who gets to do that? I get to do that every single day of my life. I get to sing. I get to work with great students. I get to teach them how to be great singers, great performers, and just great human beings in general. And I just love every single thing that I do. So I find that my life's journey, I mean, there's so many little details that I could tell you, but I don't want to go just deep into all of those things because, trauma is a mess. And so many of us have gone through trauma. And I'm one of those people that not only has gone through trauma, but I'm surviving trauma and I'm thriving anyway. I'm thriving anyway. And I give all the credit to the Creator for that, to God for that. I give all the credit to having a husband that supports me and loves me and tells me I'm better. I give the credit to my mother-in-law, Harriet, who has come along beside me after my mother passed away. I miss my mother very much. My mother and I, we called one another war buddies, and we're very close, but my mother-in-law has stepped up, and my husband's whole family has stepped up and stepped into place in a situation where I've ended up having to step away from my own family due to the dysfunction. My mother-in-law and my husband's family has become that family for me, and I so greatly appreciate it. They continue to support me in my journey to overcome the trauma, because I'm going to tell you that my trauma is deep. And when you're a singer, you have to connect to all aspects of your life. You have to connect with the good and the dark. So you have light and dark going on as you sing. So there's this dark side to me that suffers in depression and the panic, anxiety, and all of that. And then there's this light side of me that truly wants to overcome and keep going and keep getting through and keep walking and keep smiling and keep loving and keep having this great opportunity sharing with other people in the process. It affected my voice a lot because of the panic and anxiety. I now have vestibular migraines, and vestibular migraines are different than regular migraines. The stress and anxiety of taking care of my mother, she was a burden, but there was a lot of more trauma that was going on during that time. She lived with us for 10 years. And while she lived with us, I had my 3 teenage children, which they're now full-grown adults, Rachel, Rosemary, and Jacob. They're now full-grown adults, but at the time they were teenagers. We had my mother living with us. She was dying of dementia, and we kept her alive for 10 years until she finally passed in 2020. She literally died on January 5th of 2020. So she missed the pandemic. She missed the big problems and the shutdown and all that. And I'm grateful that she went on to heaven, because that way she didn't have to deal with any of the stuff that was going on. But she lived with us, and there was just a lot of stress during that time. And because of that stress, my nervous system shorted out and it killed my left inner ear. And so when the inner ear dies, it doesn't return. And so now I get really dizzy, and we've worked to get my right side, because your right side can compensate for the left, but I still have these dizzy spells where I used to have 20 or 30 dizzy spells a month, which I later found out were migraines. It was just migraine after migraine after migraine after migraine, and I could barely function and I could barely stand up to now where, we've got it down to once every 2 weeks or, once a week. And I would like them more spread out. So would my neurologist. And that was another thing that my voice teacher in New York, his husband, Jim Luisi, worked for Massachusetts General, and he was high up in the administration. and they both talked to me, and I went to Boston, Massachusetts and we finally got a great diagnosis, and I'm with the, if not the best, otoneurologist in the world, and he helps me monitor and maintain my migraine situation. Sometimes it causes me to have convulsions, so we are careful with that. So I'm working hard to figure out if I'm going to be able to get back on the stage and get auditioning again, or if I even want to do that, because now I have this podcast and I have my studio and my students, and I love it so much. This podcast, The Naked Singer, came out of my desire to share more outside of my own studio in the area I started this studio in a one stoplight town in North Carolina. I'm very serious. We only have one stoplight, and the little town is Boiling Springs, North Carolina. It is the home of Gardner-Webb University. So really, we're just this tiny little college town with one stoplight and a post office and a grocery store and some fast food restaurants and some other restaurants, very, very small. And you can walk pretty much anywhere you want to go. I mean, you can drive too, but I like to do a lot of walking. And when I started this studio, it seemed crazy, because why would I start a studio in the middle of nowhere? But I did, and it's become highly successful. And I have students that Zoom in from all over the country. I have local students. I do everything. So when the opportunity and the thought came up, hey, do a podcast, you can reach even further, I thought, okay, I think that I will do that. And it seems like a lot of fun. So my son has a successful podcast, but he's a gamer. We're in a completely different genres. And I just thought, how fun would it be for me to be able to share what goes on and my thought process and how singing affects people and what they can do as singers to get further and further and further out. And so that's where the Naked Singer came from, because I'm a very blunt, honest person, and I'm just going to tell you how I feel about things. I'm very truthful, so I don't hide the truth. I try to be kind. I always tell my students I'm a kind person, but I'm not easy. So I try to make sure I inspire them to do what they need to do in the kindest way possible, but I'm not going to let them get away with doing bad work or doing mediocre work when they can do so much better. So I demand a high level of productivity from my students, and that's something that they clearly understand and they appreciate, although I know that they don't always like it, but I know that they appreciate the fact that success for them is highly important to me, because I truly believe that when you help someone else succeed, you will succeed yourself. You can't help it. So my whole makeup, I want to help somebody to be encouraged and others to succeed. And their success is also in turn my success. So I really think about things in that manner. And I just heard in a book that I am reading that really spoke to me. It just really rang a bell, because in all this work that I have done in trauma therapy and everything, I have learned that one of the things that's important is that you support yourself, that you put your thought process and good things and your encouragement to yourself first, and that giving yourself support helps you along your pathway to success. So in other words, one of the things that singers, young singers especially, can do for themselves to support themselves is to practice, because you are supporting yourself. Every single time you practice, you are putting support behind what you want. So if you don't support yourself in the activity that you want, then you're not going to really get anywhere. And I think that is such an important way for us to be able to think, because I don't think enough of us think about actually supporting ourselves and be supportive of ourselves towards our goals and the desires in our hearts. It is very important that we do those things, and we understand that when there's something in us that is compelling us to do something, and here in the South, they call that your calling and your purpose in life. So if you really feel strongly that you have a certain purpose in your life and you want to go after that, and that's something you genuinely want for yourself, then you need to do what it takes to support yourself in that desire that you have. So that's something that I want all of you guys to know. If I do not support myself in what I do right now, if I don't feel like I can support myself and say, Crystal, this is absolutely what you need to be doing. You absolutely have something important to say. You absolutely have a way of encouraging others and really believe that deep down inside, then I could not do this podcast right now. It would make a huge difference to me, and I wouldn't be doing this right now. Had I not known that I was capable of getting students and teaching them how to be great, then my studio would not be successful in the way it's successful right now. And I am not done yet. That's the thing. I still have another plan and another plan and another plan and another plan. I've got some surprises that are probably going to come up in the new year in 2023. And I am so excited because I am not finished yet. There is more for me to do and more for me to put out there. And every day it's flowing in my direction. And I'm going to support that in me. I'm going to support that. I was told over and over and over again growing up, no, you can't have that. 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 And some of that was because my father was totally blind and honestly, we were very poor. Our main source of income was my mother, who worked for the local dentist. So it was a very low salary that brought in, and she had all four of us to support, and my mother did the main supporting for our family. And it was years. I was 12 years old before my father actually agreed to get disability. My aunt, his sister, actually talked him into that because it was for the welfare of his family. And he finally agreed that he would do it, but his pride wouldn't let him do it for so long. So we truly suffered, not having enough money, being scared, we couldn't turn the heat on. We had space heaters. We couldn't turn the air conditioner on. We had to open up all the windows and have fans blowing all the time. And I am telling you, it is hot in the summertime in Georgia. When they say the devil went down to Georgia, he wasn't just looking for some gold to steal. He was setting fires, and it was a blazing in Georgia. I'm just here to tell you that. So it was hot, and one of the fans, oh my gosh, it made so much rattling noise, and that thing was across the hall from me in my bathroom that was tiled from ceiling to floor with all these hard surfaces, so that just echoed, and it was so hard to sleep in the summertime. And I just wanted a situation where I could have air conditioning and never go through that again. So I would never have to go through anything like that again. So that's pretty much where I'm at right now. I want to tell you that you can do anything that you set your mind to, but you have to start by changing the belief system that you have in your own mind. You have to retrain your mind to think about things in a different way. If I don't do this every single day, it makes it much harder for me to keep going and be creative. And I must be creative because I have to produce more. Because here where I am, there is nothing. So, in order to produce more, I have to think more, and I have to write more, and I have to decide more. And that is what I do on a daily basis. I have to divide and make lists of ideas that I have, see what's realistic, see what's not, what can be in a 6-month plan, what can be in a 12-month plan, what can be in a 3-year plan. I go through all of these things all the time. But the main thing that I have to do is what I said a minute ago, is actually support myself in these activities. And I don't mean monetarily. The money comes after I support myself. I mean to cheer myself on, to say, yes, Crystal, you can do this, and have this innate belief deep down inside. Yes, I can. I can achieve that. If I can think it, I can achieve it. And nobody can take that away from me, no matter how negative or what naysayers are out there saying it. Because believe me, I hear naysayers all the time. I think the funniest ones are the ones that come into my studio. The parents that come into my studio concerned about their child who is a singer, and while they are handing me a check, they ask me to talk to their child about a backup plan because they say they're concerned that their child won't be able to make any money and make a living in singing. They're handing me their check. And I think that is so funny because I'm making a living in music as a singer and as a teacher. And so it's sort of a ridiculous thing to be asked. Because I go, okay, well, then why do I have money in my hand right now? So that's just a really sad thought process, and it's not supportive. It's not supportive at all. And that comes from their own belief system about ourselves. And that has to be changed, because why can't musicians make money? Why not? You go to concerts, you pay for their tickets, and those people on the stage are musicians and you're listening to your music. So why can't that be your child? It's somebody else's child and they're doing it. So don't think lesser about your child. Now, my mom was very supportive. My dad never told me no, but they didn't come from much. And they were scared and they were worried, but it didn't take much for me to do better than my parents. It didn't really take that much, but I still had people say, well, how are you going to make a living? How are you going to do these things? And I have never once worried that I would be able to make money. I have always been able to make money, maybe not, Bill Gates kind of money, or whoever is wealthy out there, Oprah Winfrey type of money. My mind just went blank. But I do make money, and I do make a living, and I do have a good car, and I do have a nice house, and I have electricity, and I have water, and my children had, oh, by the way, 0 debt when they got out of college. Now, right now, my daughters, Rachel and Rosemary, their master's degrees. And that's a different thing because they both chose as adults to get their master's degree. And so they are paying for that portion of everything. But their undergraduate, they came out with no debt. That is almost unheard of in this day and age. So, yes, you can make a living and support a family on music and being a musician. You just have to know how to run your business and then believe that deep down inside, this is what you're supposed to do. You have to support yourself towards the activity that you want to do, and where do you want to be with that activity. And that's a support that you have to give yourself in order to get there. It's like I said earlier, if you are not practicing, you're not supporting yourself, and you don't truly believe that you can do it. And that's when you need to really reevaluate, why do you feel that way? Because frankly, that's not healthy thinking. That is just not healthy thinking. We as people, any of us, can be successful in what we do. In the end, that is just about what you truly believe about yourself and your own abilities. It doesn't have anything to do with anything else. It means that you have been programmed that way, and you've got to ask yourself, why? Who programmed me that way? Where did I get this belief system, and why? And then you have to start working on changing that. And if you have to go to therapy like I do, go to therapy. I just happen to believe that everybody needs a therapist. So I go to therapy. I work on it. I get things released from my body. I pray every day. I ask God for help. I read my Bible. This is just what I do because I'm a spiritual person. I memorize scripture. I memorize personal affirmations. I say them every day. I work on vibrating high as I possibly can and letting my vibe and my vibration and my energy match the energy of the goals that I have for myself. So that's my story. There's always more to it. And maybe in another podcast, I can get even deeper and in depth, but I've given you a lot of information and a lot of thought processes that I personally have through my story. I'm going to tell you that nothing that I have ever walked through has been easy. It's been hard. The storms, the lightning, the flooding, everything that could possibly go on in a person's life, I've had going on. And I'm just saying that you can do whatever you want to do if you're willing to do the work that it takes to overcome the issues that you have. And it takes a lot of true in-depth work. Yes, there's a lot of friendships that you're going to change, groups you're going to change, you're going to get out of your comfort zone. You're going to move in a different direction. You're going to take different paths. And sometimes the people in your life are not going to like the fact that you did that. And who you end up with may not be who you started with on that journey. Sometimes you have to unload dead weight, even if it's family. It doesn't mean that they're awful or you don't love them. It's just that if all you're going to hear is the negative from them, then you don't need that. It is hard to continue relationships with people that continue to pour poison into you rather than health. And that's something that you have to consider if you want something more for yourself. Singing is one of those things because it's not the norm. It's not becoming a lawyer or a doctor or an accountant. It's an independent thing, and it has individual taste, and it's an art. And in order to get great at it and to make a huge living at it, you've got to hone it and hone it and hone it. And then you have to be willing to let people know that you're out there and run your business. Run your business. I am the face of McDaniel Music Studios. I want my work to be good, and I want my students to be good because they are a reflection of my work and my heart and my energy and my vibration. And every single one of them I love to pieces, and I would show up for any day of the week. And that's something that I work hard to do so that my students get the support and belief that they need in order to start believing in themselves. I always tell them that you can borrow my belief and my faith in them until you can believe it yourself. That's who I am. That's my life. And I love every second of it. The new stuff is coming up. I cannot wait to tell you what we are going to do next, because you are going to see some spectacular things out of the Naked Singer, and you are going to see some spectacular things out of McDaniel Music Studios and the students and the work that we do there. If you want to be a part of that, you are welcome to contact us. You can go to our website, www.mcdanielmusicstudios. You can find that on Instagram, on Facebook. You can find it on Twitter. I don't go on Twitter a lot because honestly, I just don't understand Twitter, but that's a story for another day. You can find the Naked Singer podcast. You can find it at Naked Singer blog on Instagram. You can find it on Facebook. You can find it at The Naked Singer on TikTok, and you can find it at The Naked Singer on, let me think, I think that might be it. It's hard sometimes for me to remember all the social media. Oh, if you can also find it on YouTube, and when you're in the search engine, you look at Crystal, Crystal space the, and the is capitalized, naked is capitalized, and singer is capitalized, and there are no spaces in between. And make sure you do it just like that, or you're going to really regret it, because there's some bad things out there under Naked Singer. I can tell you that. And so that's why we have it done a certain way so that you don't find that. But we are on YouTube, and I'm about to do some other things on YouTube that I hope is really going to help everybody, because that's what I'm here for, to help you succeed. Because when you succeed, I succeed. Remember, if you follow us, please make sure to comment on the post that you make, because we want to hear from you. We've got to get interaction and conversation going, because that's how it starts making a difference to you when you start commenting. Don't just be silent. Make sure you like it. Make sure you share it. Make sure you comment. Make sure that you tag a friend on it. All of those good things, and help us out and spread the word, because we are here to help other people succeed. All right, that's all I have for you today. As always, I'm Crystal McDaniel, and this is the Naked Singer.